You know, I started all this to talk about video games, but that's not really today's story, because Netflix are about to own the Nemesis system, along with the rest of WB Games. It's another tech giant trying to swallow up another media company, and it's another deal that will reshape the games that you play. Like, seriously, it will, and these mergers and acquisitions plays that we've seen have quite obviously led to a lot of bad things in the consumer side over the last few years. Just that this particular corporate marriage really is a disaster waiting to happen, almost more so than normal. You see, on one side you got WB Games. It's a company whose leadership has squandered away every advantage they could have had, with lots of little catastrophes like multiverses and Suicide Squad. And then on the other hand, you got Netflix. They're actually 4 years into their big gaming strategy, and so far, well, they've managed to shut down a AAA studio, lay off those developers, and they've actually pivoted their whole strategy multiple times. So yes, everyone here has a great direction for their company, and it's all going to work great. No, it's obviously a match made in hell. Now, given the time of year, I think there's a problem you and I share, where with gift hunting, it needs to feel personal, but you can't go overboard and, you can put it off and, well, here's the good news. I have a solution. It's today's sponsor, Aura Frames, because they just make gifting easy. So it's a digital picture frame, but done properly. Now, I've been getting into photography properly this year, and what I love about the Aura is it extends that hobby into something tangible in the space where I live. No scrolling around through my phone, just my favorite shots rotating on a gorgeous display. And the clever bit is you can preload it with photos before it even ships. So when you're doing this as a gift, whenever the recipient opens it, it's already full of, well, memories, whatever you want in there, tailored for them. And from there, sharing more is effortless. It's straight from your phone, super easy, all year long. It just turns a gift into something that will keep giving, that can keep on being useful as you make more memories, take more photos. And for a limited time, you can save on this perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com. You'll get $35 off their best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, and that's by using promo code Bellular at the checkout. That's AURAFrames.com, promo code Bellular. Deals exclusive to viewers, and the frames sell out fast, so get yours now in time for the holidays, and to get your discount and support the channel, mention us at checkout. It may not surprise you to know that WB Games has been a mess for the last few years, even though they did the big Hogwarts game. The recent legacy, well, that's Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. They've had studio closures hitting everyone from the freshly formed Multiverses developer Player First Games to the rather venerable Monolith Productions. You know, they did Shadow of Mordor, they made the Nemesis system, which of course got patent hoarded, which is lovely. But of course, Monolith are gone, and yeah, Netflix, or maybe, of course, Mr. Ellison, will own the Nemesis system, because everything's cool and good. But the absurd bit of all of this is that as much as is all that chaos, it's also the company that toppled Call of Duty from the sales charts with Hogwarts Legacy. That should have been a turning point for the company, right? They had one of the largest successes this industry has had in the last decade. And somehow they followed that up with closing studios, cancelling projects, and announcing plans to squeeze even more money from their live service games. It's a company with Mortal Kombat, the Arkham games, the beloved suite of Lego games, that's now just been reduced to chasing whales in their live service outings, while basically just shutting down the teams that kind of built their reputation. And that's just our read of them externally. There's also the internal culture, where, per Bloomberg, WB Games became a division of Warner Bros., where basically executives refused to make decisions, they wasted staff time on indecision, and they just couldn't let games ship without interfering. Really, when you go through that whole story, it's kind of amazing the new leader came in and he was all basically completely trashing the previous leader, whole big mess, whole big shit show, and, well, Netflix wants to buy it. So let's talk about that bit. $72 billion. That is Netflix's offer for Warner Bros. Discovery. Of course, maybe that'll mean that I'll get my Ghost Adventures on Netflix now. Maybe. How convenient. There's been a lot of interest from other companies, and that will become relevant later on in this story. But here's the big thing, right? The deal is not about video games. It's really about other things. Because even something like Hogwarts Legacy, well, that barely cleared $1 billion in revenue. Rookie numbers. And the release announcements that they've made for this deal, well, they're all talking about Warner Bros.' massive library of films and series and the streaming impact of HBO. Games weren't even a footnote, so if you care about the games bit, that's probably not great. But thankfully we've got more detail courtesy of game developer staff, who spent hours just getting a Warner Bros. Discovery spokesperson to confirm that the gaming division wasn't being spun off like their cable networks. The response was kind of telling though. No plans that they could announce, but they would maintain, quote, current operations, which, as we all know, have been going amazingly. And Warner Bros. CEO David Zaslav, yes, that mad lad's back again, well, he suggested the Netflix might just skip the traditional post-merger layoff, which certainly is the sort of thing that you would say pre-merger, because you want to make the merger look like a good thing. Here's a quote from the big man. The intention is they want to keep most people because they don't have a lot. They don't have a motion picture studio and they don't have a big gaming business, and so the fit feels very good for our employees. Basically, it's him trying to say, Netflix don't have the stuff that we have, so they probably are buying us for some of those things. Now, of course, they could also just be buying them for all of that IP. Things that have already been made that are worth quite a lot of money. Kind of ironically, this is one of the first mentions of gaming in any public statements about this merger, which does go to show how little it seems gaming has been a priority, but there's a little bit of a hint that Netflix may actually want WB Games, because obviously their own gaming division hasn't really had a good time. And if what all this suggests is actually true, it would be a marked change from the scuttlebutt earlier this year, where basically sources were telling the Financial Times that WB was considering selling off the games arm altogether, either just as a whole or basically stripped down for parts. But here, Zaslav's also not wrong. Netflix does have a big gaming business, but it's not quite like WB's, although one way that it is quite like it is that it's really goddamn messy. Just as I finished this recording, we got a new quote, and my god, this quote is amazing. Peter said that while Warner has done, quote, great work in the game space, we don't actually attribute any value to that from the get-go because they're relatively minor compared to the grand scheme of things. So there you have it from the horse's mouth. And by horse, I don't just mean some random Netflix quote machine. That's from their co-CEO. It's all looking good. How much of a shit show is Netflix's gaming business? Well, 2 years ago, Netflix bought indie studio Spry Fox. They make puzzle games, stuff with like Cozy Grove and Animal Crossing energy, so a good fit for a casual audience. Last week, they sold the studio back to their founders. 2 years had passed. I suppose something probably happened, but whatever plan they had for that studio has now been abandoned. That's just your appetizer. So, Netflix Gaming launched in 2021 with 5 mobile games. And the pitch was simple. Anyone with a Netflix account could play premium games for free. And these wouldn't be choose-your-own-adventure things like Bandersnatch that you gotta play on your TV remote. No, these would be actual, real video games. And they had ambitions to scale all of this up and to basically compete for attention with Fortnite itself. They bought rather renowned studios like Night School, who are the devs of Oxenfree, basically to make real games, alongside all of the mobile stuff that they would be doing based on Netflix IP. Which of course was a tremendous success because we're all still playing that Stranger Things mobile game that they did back then. I don't know, maybe there's more than one. Whatever. Now, as of a year later, only 1.1% of Netflix users were actually playing games. That's a small percentage, but it's still quite a lot of people. That's 1.7 million daily users. That's what they're reporting anyway. That does completely blow my mind, but you know what? If you're a public company and you lie about numbers like that, you get in a lot of trouble. So I'm just going to assume those people actually do exist. Now, by 2023, they were testing a browser and smart TV app, though that wouldn't launch fully until 2025. And in the years between, they really pivoted hard and things got weird. So there was massive deals with companies like Rockstar that brought franchises like Grand Theft Auto to their platform. That meant they passed 200 million downloads off the back of that stuff. But of course, that's not Netflix developing games. That's them getting access to people's libraries. Their homegrown efforts were, they were altogether worse. So they formed a AAA quality studio in 2022 with Halo and Blizzard veterans that they then shut down in late 2024. This keeps on happening all of the time. Now, this was their one attempt at making games the way the WB does, right? Like with a full actual studio, and it only lasted for 2 years. Now, around that time, leadership at the top of their gaming division changed. Their priorities then shifted towards cheaper, generative AI content. Fantastic. They followed it all up with laying off staff at Night School Studios, which happened in 2025. They cancelled 6 planned PC and console ports, and they doubled down on, quote, what our members like. I have a slight suspicion that might translate to slop. What they also did is they actually pulled all of their choose-your-own-adventure format things from Netflix as well. And you see, that's because apparently what members liked is a library full of content that they recognize, and small games based on Netflix IP. Now, what Netflix will now do with the WB games that they may actually own, which is, a set of developers who make very big games, like the sorts of games that Netflix just got out of, who really knows? That's weird. And of course, those WB Games devs have basically just spent years being mismanaged, hemorrhaging money. They've been hemorrhaging staff, hemorrhaging talent, hemorrhaging everything that can hemorrhage. It very much looks like an out of the pan and into the fire situation. So, with all that cheery stuff in mind, what happens next? Well, right now, there's no obvious place for the WB Games library inside of Netflix's operation. Hogwarts Legacy and Mortal Kombat becoming library games that they don't have to license is nice to have, I guess, but there's no real business crossover, or, synergy, which you do actually want when you can get it. So that's a bit weird, and it's all a bit bizarre. One of these companies, Netflix, basically just seems to want nice-to-have games that they can give out for free, so that their Netflix subscribers, have something to share with their household, maybe get hooked on, keep the Netflix subscription going. Like, that's the actual business model of Netflix. It's very much not the model of WB Games, which was all about making big premium titles sold at full price before they then, also tried to make those live service games, and that was obviously all a disaster. So I guess we've got coexisting disasters now. And maybe coexistence in a simple form is what will happen. The WB will just run as WB does. It'll be a business unit that maybe will just also launch its games on Netflix, right? Maybe something a bit like Games Pass. Maybe that'll be that. And maybe Netflix will sell off or shut down these studios because they don't really fit the core business model of Netflix. I mean, Netflix doesn't have that many developers, and they haven't really needed that many developers up to now. Whenever they had loads of developers, they, fired them. They shut the studio down. And what they've instead been doing is just licensing out their properties rather than building them internally. So what's the synergy there? I mean, it could just be a bunch of WB Games IP and legacy stuff just kind of left rotting in a vault, waiting for the right buyer, or simply just being lost in a corporate shuffle. Which is a real risk here, because this stuff just ain't that important to Netflix. I mean, look how little games were even mentioned. But here's the worst part, because it actually may get worse. You see, Netflix buying WB Games probably wouldn't be good, but at least it would be definitive. They would be owned by a company that does technically have a gaming division. Chaotic one, but still a gaming division. The new bit of news is that that may not be what happens. The deal may not actually go through. You see, global regulatory approval is actually required for this, and the frontrunner in streaming, swallowing up its competition, will obviously face scrutiny just about everywhere, even in the US's kind of more laissez-faire environment. Now, the White House isn't exactly close with Netflix. They've also said that the deal, quote, could be a problem, and that may be where the Allison family of, Oracle and everything. We've even talked about them before with Annapurna Games. That story had a private billionaire island in it. It was a very fun one. Allegedly, right? The only reason WB was up for sale in the first place was because of Paramount and them trying to make a deal happen. So it seems that they're kind of pissed off that this Netflix thing has happened, and that's now led to them executing a hostile takeover bid for $100 billion. And of course it is one backed by the Saudi Public Investment Fund and Jared Kushner's Affinity Partners, the same group that just bought Electronic Arts. And reportedly, we don't have the full stuff yet, but the percentage of EA that the Saudis may actually own is shockingly high. I believe above 90% is what's currently being reported, which is maybe a little bit more than people thought. So they could also own this too. Wouldn't that be great? And with that mentioned, it's only right that I offer my congratulations to Tolkien Black, because he won the South Park Turkey Trot, also backed by the Saudis. So it's a funny story then. Even if Netflix is a company with a gaming division that doesn't really fit Warner Bros., at least it would be a company with a gaming division. Paramount is really less. Now, Paramount has only got a modern gaming division because they bought the Walking Dead publisher Skydance in 2022. And all they've done with that is release VR games and a promise for the continually delayed Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. So great, they actually found a concept for a Marvel game that I'd be bloody well interested in, and it's the one that seems to be complete vaporware. Lovely. Paramount buying WB Games would probably be a bigger unknown than Netflix. I can't tell you it would be worse because we cannot predict the future, but it certainly would be more of an unknown. But there is a through line across all of these scenarios, and that through line is the poor bastards at WB Games. They've already spent most of a decade being dicked around by their leadership's decisions, and I think no matter what, that does not look to be changing anytime soon. And speaking of the people who actually make the damn games getting dicked around, maybe, just maybe, we're set for a rare thing, an undicking. That's basically what Creative Assembly are saying they're going to be doing. And if you want to learn all about that, watch this video next.